Hello, everyone. USM Spring Sports. Welcome to a workshop with Coach Busy. Today, I will be talking to you guys about using self-talk to build confidence, especially in the early stages of your season, with something I like to call being in the yellow. If you've done workshops with me the last couple years, you might have heard me talk about this and a lot of similar things. But it bears repeating because I think it's really helpful to have a good sense of how to use our self-talk in the best ways. I guess before we start, and you can kind of see what our outline is, make sure that you have paper with you and a pen. Take notes as we go and definitely participate in the activities as we come up to them as well. So for today's workshop, it'll be pretty simple. We're going to explore the three different kinds of self-talk that I talk about to athletes, which is negative, positive, and neutral. We will discover the most useful form of self-talk, and we will also talk about how we can use self-talk to build confidence, especially early on in the season. First things first, what I want you guys to do on your pieces of paper is just draw this stoplight. If you have colors with you, I'm guessing you don't, but if you do, you can color the yellow and the green and the red lights. If you don't have colors with you, you can just write the words yellow and green and red right into those circles. And just kind of draw that somewhere on the top of your page, just so we have kind of a good visual as we're going through the workshop. If you need to pause the video to do this, go ahead and do that now. All right, so let's break down these three different kinds of self-talk as they relate to these colors, the red light, the yellow light, and the green light. Red light thinking is, as you probably have guessed, is negative thinking. Negative thinking is often focused on the past, like our mistakes, and it causes us anxiety. So examples of negative thinking is like, I can't hit a single shot today, I suck. We're reflecting on our mistakes. Sometimes it's focused on the future. I won't hit a single shot today, I suck. Something like that, where it's just assuming things are going poorly, which is kind of what anxiety does to us. And that is our negative thinking. I will never, ever, ever tell an athlete that negative thinking is helpful. Even if you are the type of athlete that is motivated by someone pushing you and kind of being hard on you, there's a difference between that and using, more neutral, positive language and negative language, which is never helpful. It just makes us think about our mistakes. So, red light thinking, never ever. We want to stop doing that. Green light thinking is positive self-talk, often focused on the future, but is not always realistic. And so it's not the worst kind of self-talk we can do, but it's also not the most helpful. The example I have is if we're going into a game or match or an event and we're saying like, I will never miss a single shot today. I know I'm gonna win. I know I'm gonna get first. It's really great to think of ourselves that way, but it is not realistic because we can't predict the future. We live in the here and now. And so, green light thinking and positive thinking, if you're telling yourself, well, I try to be positive and I try to tell myself I'm going to make this shot, I would say it's not helpful because we don't know. We have to find better ways to tell ourselves why we're going to make the shot as opposed to saying we are, and then sometimes falling short of those expectations. If we hit the shot, that's great, but it doesn't always happen that way. So let's talk about the most, actually, way more helpful form of self-talk, which is, as you probably guessed, yellow light thinking. Yellow light thinking is neutral, it's not positive or negative, and it's present focused. The only time we actually can control in life is the present. And it ignores like big emotions and big feelings, and it really just tells us what we need to do. So it takes us from what am I feeling, which sometimes is anxious, sometimes it's excited, sometimes it's angry, and it answers the question, what do I need to do? And so going off of my example of shooting, instead of saying I'm going to make the shot, I'm going to tell myself elbow high, follow through, because those are things I can control and those are things I know how to do. So that is yellow light thinking. It answers the question, what do I need to do? So if you're someone that struggles with your self-talk and you're thinking like, well, positive self-talk is what I try to do and it doesn't help, it's probably because our positive self-talk can be unrealistic. Same with negative, of course. So let's focus on adding more yellow light thinking. What do I need to do to succeed, as opposed to telling myself I'm going to succeed? let's practice this together. So you guys should have a stoplight kind of on your page. And we're going to go through different examples of these lines of thinking, and you guys can write examples so you can practice like getting more into that neutral self-talk. So, little scenario here. Let's pretend our team is playing in a big game or a meet, but your practices this week have not been great. So you're feeling a little worried, a little anxious, and not sure that you're going to perform well. So kind of get yourself in the mindset of that scenario. I think as athletes, we've all been there before, just kind of an off week for us, but we have to go up and perform. Just because we've had a bad week doesn't mean we're going to have a bad game or a match or a meet or whatever, but oftentimes our self-talk takes us to that place. And so let's practice our different forms of self-talk so we can eliminate the unhelpful ones and get to our most helpful one. So first, I want you to write on your paper like negative or red light. And I want you to give two examples of red light thinking or negative self-talk related to this scenario. So I put, I'm not going to do well today. Super negative, also unrealistic because we have no idea. So I want you guys to pause the video and write down your two examples of red light thinking related to this scenario. All right. Back to our example here. Let's transition to green light thinking. So I want you to write down two examples of what green light thinking would be here, which my example is we're definitely going to win today. Really nice to think about. I hope we do, but we have no idea, and we're not telling ourselves how we're going to win. We're just saying we're going to, which is unrealistic just because we can't predict the future. Not because we're not capable of winning, but because we have no idea what's going to happen. And so I want you guys to think of two other green light thoughts that would be common to have in this scenario that you can practice writing down so we know to avoid them. Go ahead, pause the video and do that. Last but not least, of course, we have our yellow light thoughts, the place we want to be, the place we know and love. Two examples of yellow light thinking on top of my one example, which is my teammates support me and I can hit my shots if I shoot quickly. So it's telling myself things I know, which is my teammates support me, and things I know how to do, which is shoot quickly. And that helps me, at least in the process, to get the outcome of hitting my shots. And so I want you guys to think of really specific, sort of think about it like feedback things to tell yourself that if you say these things to yourself, you're envisioning the process to get to the outcome of winning or succeeding. So two yellow light examples here. If you want to write more just to practice, that's totally fine. But go ahead and pause the video and do that. All right, awesome. Great participation, assuming I can't see you guys, obviously. But let's move on to my kind of second half of this, which is being in the yellow by staying present. And this is a great example I like to tell teams, especially at the start of the season, where we often can envision a season or a game or a practice like this map of the Boston Marathon. Any marathon is great, but most marathons start and end in the same place. Boston is kind of funky because it starts 26 miles away from where it finishes. And so it's an exact thing where you actually cannot see the finish line. You're 26 miles away from the finish line. And so I love this because like sometimes our seasons feel like a marathon, sometimes a practice can feel that way. Sometimes a game because we're so anxious and we want it to be over because we want to win. But if we're thinking about that finish line, we're not actually telling ourselves what to do in the present to get there. And so this is a great visual to have. If you want to break it down to like our bus ride to the game or the van ride to the game, or you're walking into your own even home gym or arena or rink or wherever, is the start of the marathon. That's the only moment you can control when you're there. Maybe the game starts and you're going and it's the end of the first period and you're on mile 6. You're still 20 miles away from the finish, but the only moment you can control is mile 6. And we keep going until the final horn, which is the finish line. And so I say all this to say, like, envisioning instead of, taking ourselves to the future of like, I really want to win and I really want to do this. You're not telling ourselves what to do to get from mile to mile to mile to get to the end of the marathon, which often can be like our season or game. Another example of this, as I said before, is our first practice of the spring season, which I'm sure you all already had, and our final game. We can't get to the playoffs when we are sitting here on April 9th. We can't be in the playoffs yet, so we focused on what we're doing on April 9th and not what we're doing maybe in May when the playoffs are starting or however your season's going to end or state or whatever it is. And so keep this visual in your head throughout the season of like what mile am I on? Because that's the only mile I can control, and eventually I will get to the finish line by focusing on the 1 mile at a time. All right, really quickly, kind of a summary of how to practice this throughout the season. Draw the stoplight. Draw the stoplight after practices, draw it after games. Write down some green, some red, some yellow thoughts you had. You're going to have all of them. We can't always control our automatic thoughts. Actually, we never can. And so it's important for us to kind of write these down and be self-critical and work on adding more yellow thoughts. Check in with yourself during practice, asking yourself, like, am I in the yellow today? How can I fix this? Or how can I continue it? If you're feeling really down on yourself and you're going to the red, imagine the yellow light and think about how can I tell myself, like, what should I do? What should I be doing? How should I ask for help to get there? Staying present during games and during meets, super important. If you find yourself thinking about the final buzzer or even the second half where you're in when you're in the first half, or two plays from now where you're in the current play, find one spot in the arena or in the area that will be your reset spot. Bonus points if it's yellow, that'll be like, I need to focus on the here and now. This is the only moment I can control. I've had some teams even print out that map of the Boston Marathon just as the visual of like, we are not at mile 26 and we only get there by doing mile one and then two and then three, etc. So kind of keep that in your head. Hopefully this is helpful just to start framing some of our self-talk, especially you guys start the season. I will be sending out another video in a few weeks that explores different mental skills that you guys can use. But in the meantime, keep your notes from this video, use them throughout your start of your season, and I will talk with you guys soon.